We're back with Nancy Tertre, and I think we're going to be talking about some other great, wonderful stuff. I mean, I'm just finding this so incredibly interesting. Thank you so much, Nancy, for your experience and your intelligence and your consciousness. Really that. Let's talk a bit about remote viewing, if you wouldn't mind, and also intuition. I think sometimes we talk about things like, oh, that's just a coincidence, or that's just happenstance that happened. And I think that we have more power in creating what happens in our life than we often give ourselves credit to. But anyway, back to remote viewing, please. Can you explain that for our listeners?
There are all kinds of very formal definitions of it, which is sort of the ability to perceive information or to obtain knowledge about things that are beyond the boundaries of our actual physical senses. I like to just make it simple. I call it clairvoyance with protocols, because there are a lot of psychics these days who will talk about, they'll say, well, I was just remote viewing, the other side of the country and watching, whatever. And no, they weren't remote viewing. Because when you're doing remote viewing, you have to follow a very, very strict set of documentation and protocols. That's why you do it. What they were doing was a type of just pure clairvoyance. And also what's interesting is a lot of remote viewers, because they like to think that what they're doing is somehow very automated and is, it's none of this woo-woo stuff. So they say they're really not doing psychic stuff. And the fact is that, yes, they are. But they're doing the psychic work in a way that documents that there was no fraud, no deception, and they didn't have prior knowledge of anything.
Can you give an example of that for me, please?
Yeah, I mean, there are different types of remote viewing. The classical one that was originally developed is called controlled remote viewing, or CRV. And usually in that case, you'll get a blind target, which means you'll get a pair of numbers, and that's it, and a piece of paper and a pencil. And you have to describe what is at that, if it's a location, a person, you don't know. You have to describe, what do those numbers represent?
Wow.
And you just write. And then you finish your documentation. And if you're lucky, you may afterwards get some feedback, either from a client, or if it was an exercise, they'll tell you. And then you compare what aspects of what you wrote down were accurate. Like if you saw, let's say, I don't know, the color green, and you saw, some triangles or pointy things, and you saw this little windy thing, it looks sort of like a snake, and you described it that way. But if the actual place, let's say, represented by those two numbers was in a pine forest with a little pathway going through, a winding pathway going through the forest, then you've kind of described it. You just didn't use language the way we would normally describe it. You don't judge it. You just say, well, it's green, there are triangles, there's a thing that's kind of windy and long, it looks like a snake. That's in a nutshell, really quick nutshell, what that is.
So you get feedback after doing an exercise like that somebody then is able to say to you, yes, that was accurate, or this is what it was, and this is how close you were to it? Is that what?
That's how you get good at it.
Okay.
Just keep going back to get the feedback. And it's a positive reinforcement and a neural reinforcement also.
Now, how is that different from intuition then? Like being given something and then I just sensing something else about that.
Documentation. It's a form of, I guess you might call it, a lot of times it's a form of precognition about something that you haven't seen yet.
Oh, okay.
intuition is a really broad catch-all term, and it includes this kind of work, but I think it's broader.
And what are your feelings about intuition? I mean, in your field, how often do you use that?
I mean, I've incorporated it completely into my life, and I do find that the more that you operate using trust of your own intuition, more often than not, you're correct. And most people disregard it in favor of trying to think about something. I mean, I'll give you a stupid example. I remember way back doing therapy, and with my therapist, and I was, at that point, I was coming out of a divorce and sort of trying to re-enter the dating world. And so I was talking to him about, meeting people, and, I was saying, going out on a date, maybe the guy wasn't so great, but it takes a while to get to know somebody or whatever. And he said, absolutely not. He said, within less than, everybody does, within less than 30 seconds, what he called the contract or the relationship is.
Oh,
Immediately.
yes. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I kept saying, no, you have to know somebody longer to get to know them and experience and blah, blah, blah. No, not really. You just got to trust yourself.
So are you saying that those skills are available to all of us? It's a learned skill. We can all learn to use our intuition and remote viewing.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's fundamental to being human. I think that what's happened is that the more that we became dependent upon language, and the linear structure of language, and then because we not only trapped the formation of our thoughts, but we trapped the formation of the concepts within those thoughts, the nouns and the verbs, so that we sort of got chained into linear time and very specifically defined things, objects, people, stuff within our consciousness, so that we began to disregard everything else.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that we have put ourselves in boxes.
Yeah, exactly.
And relied on our education, formal education, on our way of seeing and defining things, and then not moving away from that because we're so in the habit of operating a certain way.
Social expectations.
Yeah, social expectations, even our expectations of ourselves, or what we've been told we need to do or be, or how to experience something. I had an interesting time with a friend recently who has just found the love of her life, right? But she said, it was just, lucky and just a miracle. And I said, well, really, let's look at some of the things you've been doing recently in your life. You were about to move away to Colorado, and you suddenly made the decision not to do that. Why do you think you did that? And she sort of sat with that for a while. And anyway, what I was trying to lead her to was that it didn't happen by happenstance. It wasn't luck. She created the things for that to happen. That she had more power and control in bringing this person forward in her life than she was giving herself credit for. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
In fact, I can tell you, and that's only that's the small piece of that. Once you start to really trust that really nondescript kind of ability or whatever, things get magical. And I'm not kidding you. I'll give you an example. There was I had a client once who had been in some type of I don't know, it was a car accident, something like that, and had won a lawsuit, and his attorney had put the money into escrow, I guess, in an attorney account. But for 2 years, the attorney had refused to turn the money over to the client for absolutely no good reason, and wasn't answering his emails, phone calls, or anything like that. So he had come to me as a remote viewer to sort of give him some concepts about, well, what should he do now since he couldn't, get the money. And the strangest thing was, in the middle of the reading that I was doing, and it was on the phone, all of a sudden a woman's voice breaks in, and she says, "Hello, hello." And he says, "Yes, hello." And I'm thinking maybe this is, I don't know, somebody, a family member, a wife, a daughter, maybe it's a housekeeper. I don't know who it is on another line in the same house, maybe. And the two of them didn't know who they were until finally he said, "Well, who is this?" Turns out she was the paralegal from the law firm.
Oh my God.
She did not know why or how she ended up on that line, and there were no other phones in his house.
Wow.
And there were no other extension lines on his house. And the two of them were equally shocked, and she hung up. And the next day, the office manager sent him the full amount that was owed by the escrow fund.
Wow. I love that. I love that.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're doing this kind of work, there are the strangest things that happen that you say, it's like bending, a steel rod in your hands. All of us know, and that's in quotation marks, that that's impossible. But there are ways that consciousness somehow works in really mysterious ways that allows this kind of magic to happen a lot.
Especially if you're open to it. Especially, I think, if you're willing to allow it to be and not question it or try to brush it off. I think we're so used to, in our culture today, to brushing things off or ignoring things, or just, oh, I don't know what that was. That was just something stupid or silly, or, rather than really sitting with something and being amazed by it and realizing the power that exists all around us all the time.
Would you call that trust, that you have to trust the process?
I think you have to. And for me, by the way, that's really hard because I tend to be kind of intellectual. And when you're intellectual, you're always sort of demanding proof. Well, how could that work? And when did that work? And how many times has that worked? What makes it work? All of that. And all of those demands, those intellectual demands, will put up roadblocks on the way to using this pathway into consciousness. So you kind of have to, and that's what I'm saying, you have to, if you're like me, you have to kind of, you got to trust.
You got to flow with it.
But here is something on the other hand for me. Especially here in Baja, we have people that's, and maybe they're drawn to Baja, I don't know, but suddenly they're people who say that they're psychic, they have special abilities, that they're remote viewers, that they're, I'm trying to think of the other word and I can't think of it right now, downloading information from someone or something else. And how do we... see, there's a skeptic part of me that comes out thinking, oh, that person says they have all this power and they can determine things about me and my life. How much do I trust that and believe that? How much do I know that that person really has that ability and skill? And I don't know. And how much do I just allow that to be?
No, you're right.
I'm going to sound terrible, but I agree with you. And I think you have to be really careful because there are tons of people. Most people have a really deep need to want to be seen as special.
Mm.
And if you can make yourself seem magical, then you get really special really fast. And so I think there are a lot of kind of wannabes out there. You know, they think if they can sort of maybe have a questionable experience, or kind of they can convince people or whatever. I don't believe people right off the bat doing this kind of work. I've seen too many people, you know, trying to fake it, or trying maybe even a much more how would you say, sort of innocent way of just believing that they are special because, you know, they really do want to be special, and they want to be like what they see, you know.
Yeah, I guess that's my concern for some people that I've met recently, and, you know, who will begin telling me things about myself that actually don't ring true to me at all. I mean, you know, or have no, I can't connect to it. Not that I don't want to, but it's like, I don't know. That doesn't sound right to me.
Could you use your intuition to sort of get clarity as to whether that person is really capable of doing what they claim?
All the time. I mean, and I get the feeling you probably do too. I mean, I've been in these fields for long enough that I don't even have I guess you would call it almost an interface of language between deciding, you know, when I meet somebody, whether I think that, you know, they are 100% what they say they are or not. I just know it. I've gotten to that place. So there's nothing, there's no logical fact connected to it other than I feel it.
Yeah, you know what? And I can really relate to that. You know, someone once said to me that she believed I was psychic. She sensed that about me. I don't feel that way about myself, but I do feel that I have a pretty strong intuition if I pay attention to it. And sometimes when I haven't, it's come back to bite me on the butt. When I haven't listened to, oh, this is not a good situation. I really need to move away from this. Or this person is someone I really need to step back from. And I mean, I get those strong messages often. It's whether I pay attention to them and listen to them.
So that's the old saying, never ignore a hunch.
Yeah.
Is there any technique, for lack of a better word, that you can perhaps offer to help us develop that skill, our intuition?
You know, it goes back to what I was saying before. Generally, the people who are the most educated and the smartest are the slowest to learn these skills.
Oh, shoot. Well.
So I have a chance. I have a chance.
No, I'm being really serious.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh.
No, I totally get it.
I know my education oftentimes gets in the way.
But and it does for everybody. And what it, you know, and that's why if you're really, really serious, you really want to get into this whole, you know, intuitive, well, there are many fields that are intuitive. You have to get over yourself and get over wanting to confirm everything all the time in order to proceed. I mean, you just have to go. You just got to do it. And that's scary, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah. Nancy, thank you so much. This really has been a lot for me to take in, but it's something that I'm going to really think about over the next few days. And I thank you for that. It's really challenged me.
You.
Well, it's challenged me, I think, in really good ways. So thank you. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. And I hope to meet you sometime in person.
Well, and perhaps if we may at some other point pick your brain again, that would be really lovely.
With pleasure, and thank you both very, very much. And I really appreciate your listening to to what I have to say.
No, it was wonderful.
We've
Thank
loved
you.
it.
Yeah.
Thank
really
you,
was.
Nancy.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you.